Hi, my name is Sabrina. I'm going to be talking to you all about um, school shooting and how can it impact a person who is a teenager, African American male. He's 16 years old. I am going to give you a brief background of what happened prior leading up to his therapy session. Um, One day, a hot summer day, he was sitting in his second period class, and all of a sudden he heard popping noises, loud popping noises. Now, my client lives in an urban city, an urban area of the city, so he's used to these popping noises, but they were a little too close for comfort for him. So when he looked around and he saw that his teacher um, was holding the door and two gunmen were on the other side of the door, um, he quickly just started to look around to see where he can go for safety. Um, Unfortunately, the two gunmen overpowered the teacher and then came into the room. Once they were in the room, the two gunmen opened fire on some of the students that were there. My client saw people running, but he just sat there with his head under the desk. Um, that day, he saw three of his best friends killed right in front of him. The two gunmen um, stepped over his best friend's body and then proceeded to walk to another classroom. Um, this is just um, one of the unfortunate events that happens in today's society. However, this left my client greatly traumatized, um, and uh, he has a he is from a single parent household, and he's also a only child. His mom works a lot just to provide the bare minimum for him and for herself and my client. So she's barely home. Um, so without having his best friend, who was recently killed, as well as a lack of support from his mom, um, he really doesn't have anyone else to turn to but to therapy. Um, so this is where our session begins. I see that several of your closest friends were shot and killed in front of you, um, and seeing shooting victims and experiencing the chaos of people running for their lives. This definitely could put you in a state of shock where you weren't able to move. Um, this state that you were in, where you pretty much become like paralyzed. This it was your pretty much what your defense mechanism. I'm sorry, defense mechanism, and it's okay to respond like that to that in that way that you did. People often respond different ways to events that they just were unforeseen, and you being unable to move and unable to, respond in a certain way doesn't make you different than anybody else. That's just how you responded. So it's completely normal to feel that way. Um, so I see that you came in a couple months later after the school shooting, um, and you really still didn't want to talk about the incident. This is normal for people who experience traumatic events because you may think that it's just too painful to relive and to talk about the incident, um, which is totally understandable. However, not talking about the incident um, may lead to negative ways to cope with the effects that you may have from the shooting that you witnessed. Um, some of the effects may include excessive drinking, excessive smoking, um, just different maladaptive behaviors that can get you in serious trouble. Um, so it's actually good that you are here to talk about um, the what happened to you, and why are you feeling the way that you're feeling. Um, some people who experience the some people who experience the shooting, uh, you you may feel like you're reliving the shooting, the incident, and you may not want to sleep because you're continuously having flashbacks of what occurred that day. Um, However, a lack of sleep can also affect your mood. It can sometimes make you feel angry or upset. You might even become easily agitated when something that may not have stressed you out before, uh, or make you feel uh, angry before the incident, will make you feel angry now. Um, so your mood can fluctuate from day to day, and this may uh, contribute to the lack of sleep that you are having due to your flashback. Um, Another way this trauma could impact you is when you hear certain sounds that's similar to uh, what you heard during that traumatic experience. For instance, you may be at a birthday party, and you may hear a balloon pop. You may hear a balloon pop. You probably will react in a similar way that you reacted when you heard the first couple of gunshots while you were in the school. So you may freeze up, or you may, run for cover somewhere. Um, Another example, you may hear people running. Um, this may, reflect the running that you heard from the students that were running away from the gunman. Um, you may freeze up again, or you may also start to run with them as well, not knowing where you're running, but you may run with them as well, just because you're reliving that experience. Um, but this is a normal response for someone who has experienced a school shooting. Um, Sometimes you may have um, different problems concentrating and staying on task, especially if you're in school, um, because you may always worry about the safety and security of you and others, and you're always on that um, heightened response if another shooting does occur. Sometimes you may also experience heightened anxiety, nervousness, or feeling of sadness when and if you return to the school. This may cause you to relive, as this may cause you to relive some painful memories of that day. School is supposed to be a safe place, and now that you have bad memories of this school, you may not want to return to school, which is understandable. You may lack the ability to develop new relationships with other peers, as you may feel that you're being disloyal to your friends who have passed away. On the other hand, you may not want to get too close to classmates or your other peers due to the fear of losing people that were close to you, and then you don't want to put that loss again. Um, Having difficulty learning new things, you may become uh, frustrated, which may result uh, in a decrease of attendance in school, which may or may not result in disciplinary action. Um, you may also experience a feeling of guilt and shame. Um, these feelings could easily overcome you in the days following the event, um, as you may wish that you could have done something a little better, or I'm sorry, not better. You could have done something different, or could have protected your friends more. Uh, all these symptoms may or may not arise, as everyone handles traumatic experiences differently. However, with guidance and support, I'm sure you'll make it through.
Hi, my name is Jillian, and I am also going to be talking to you about an individual affected by a school shooting. So my client is a 32-year-old female teacher. Her name is Amber. Amber was a teacher at a school that a mass shooting took place in. The school took place in Philadelphia, the same area that she also grew up in. So it was a local school for her. The shooter was a student in Amber's 10th grade English class. Amber mentioned that she noticed the shooter typically stayed for himself. Wasn't normally seen with a group of friends or walking around the halls with anyone. She also didn't really notice that he had any friends in her class. This was never really addressed as an issue, as it didn't raise any red flags at the time, and she didn't see any odd behaviors. The day of the shooting, the shooter was absent. The students were taking an exam in Amber's class, and Amber vividly remembers how quiet the classroom was just prior to when the shootings occurred. So the shooter entered the building right before lunch, and he went straight to Amber's classroom. When he got to the classroom, the students were still taking their exam, and he opened fire, killing 9 students. He then turned around, shooting into the hallway, also killing 3 more students. He then turned the gun on himself and killed himself. So Amber was a teacher for a total of 8 years, and she had worked at this school for 4 years. She remembers feeling very safe in this school, didn't really identify too many issues that were violent issues that were occurring in the school. Amber is married, and she's been married for 7 years with a 6-year-old daughter. She grew up in the same area in Philadelphia with her mother and her father, who are still married and also still live in the area and are close to Amber and her family. Amber also has 2 sisters that live close by, and she identifies as having a close relationship with. So Amber is seeking therapy to deal with this traumatic experience. She is coming to therapy about 3 months after the incident occurred. She's having nightmares and flashbacks, which has led her to want to seek out therapy. So this type of unexpected violence can cause psychological consequences that recover a lot of healing. Experiencing a traumatic event like this, like you did, can take such a toll on your body and your mind. Trauma can make you feel stuck in a helpless state. So the flashbacks that you're experiencing can occur while you're awake or in the form of a nightmare that may disrupt your sleep. Flashbacks can feel very real and intense, and they can make them difficult to understand if they're real or they're just memories. So it's really hard sometimes to tell if something's happening in the moment or these are flashbacks or nightmares you're having at nighttime. So more commonly, flashbacks are visual or auditory. Less often, they are seen through emotional, behavioral, or physical behaviors. Sometimes flashbacks can be identified by intense anxiety or even physical pain. So flashbacks can occur through specific triggers, such as noises. So in this situation, you might hear some loud noises such as something that might resemble a gunshot, or even any noise that may startle you if you're in a deep, quiet environment. Because of that, this feeling is, thinking back to how quiet the classroom was before the shooter came. That could also cause some type of flashback. People can cause flashbacks. Even words written on papers can cause flashbacks. Also, a specific environment may also cause or trigger some type of feelings that lead back to that day. So these nightmares and flashbacks can feel and be very horrifying and lead to just a very unhealthy well-being. So nightmares can lead to insomnia, which can then spiral into mood changes such as anger and irritability. You may also feel this anger and irritability and sadness and fear and anxiety on a daily basis. You may also experience some appetite changes, which could lead to then eating less and maybe even some weight loss, some low energy. Not eating what your body needs could then lead to even more mood changes and maybe increased irritability, increased depression. And again, all of that contributes to your well-being. So everyone feels flashbacks in different ways. Some people may become very anxious, upset, while others are stressed and feel themselves going into a different place. So it might feel as though you're no longer present in the moment, which could be a form of dissociation, which is another way that people deal with a traumatic experience like one that you've went through, kind of taking your mind out of that feeling and going some other place into sometimes a happier place or just a neutral feeling. So it's very common for someone who went through this type of experience to develop post-traumatic stress disorder, which is also known as PTSD. So PTSD is a disorder in which someone who was involved or witnessed a traumatic experience like you did, having to have difficulty in recovering. So it also sounds like you are experiencing a lot of guilt. You might have some guilt. Some of this guilt might be coming from, it sounded like you were mentioning not taking action sooner or fearing that you could have done more than you really could have. You might be having might be experiencing a lot of repeated unanswered questions such as how did this happen or why did this happen, and also feeling guilt of surviving when students in your class that you're responsible for throughout the day were killed and you weren't. So these feelings can be very tough to deal with, and usually feeling guilt can sometimes lead to shame and just a lot of negative feelings towards yourself. So then this could lead to your family also being affected. You may start to see the world in a more dangerous place. A very unexpected violent experience occurred, which could cause a lot of fear for people that are close to you, especially children. So your daughter, you might notice that you're becoming more of a protective, just scared for her to do certain things. You might also have feelings that, you failed and have feelings of wanting to give up. The relationship with your husband may also be strained, as trauma does affect your relationships and your ability to engage. Your husband, you may experience feelings of maybe not wanting to return back to work, which could always then affect your marriage. Going back to that same environment where you were, even teaching children, teaching people that age, and just being in the classroom setting can trigger a lot of flashbacks and uncomfortable feelings. It's important that you feel safe where you are going, and going back to the same type of environment might be tough to do right now. So again, that might lead to changing careers or just doing a different job, or maybe not working for some time while you go through treatment, which could then lead to some financial stress or just a lot of different feelings that could occur between you and your husband. But it does sound like you do have a strong support system with your family and a good connection, which leads to a better possibility for long-term healing. So trauma can also take the form of some self-defeating or self-destructive behaviors, such as self-harm or destructive impulsive behaviors. You may also re-experience some of the symptoms that you're feeling now in the future, in future relationships and situations if you're feeling triggered. There's sometimes you might feel, good for some time, and then something might occur that brings up some of these symptoms. This is all just general information. Everyone experiences trauma differently and handles this type of experience differently. Many people are known to be resilient and, are able to learn healthy coping strategies and get through this experience in a very positive way. Some people that have gone through this experience, especially teachers, are sometimes put in a position where they're looked at as like a counselor and, trying to maybe not seek help right in the beginning because they're then there to counsel other students, which could then just be really hard on you. But it could also lead to some good connections in the community and building a good connection with people who are going through something similar. So there are a lot of effective options that could help symptoms, that can help your symptoms to start to fade. But again, each person deals with trauma differently and heals at different rates of time. All of your traumatic memories we're going to work on in treatment and address to hopefully help them decrease. That's all. Thank you very much.